Goals-based advice is such a personalized approach, and it involves a rich, trusted relationship between the advisor and client. So the question is it scalable? Can you build a goals-based advice practice with many advisors and have the clients develop a relationship with the brand? The answer, it turns out, is yes. To dig a little deeper, in this episode number 143 of the Goals-Based Advice podcast, I speak to the CEO of Australia's largest goals-based advice firm, Terry Dillon from Shadforth Financial Group. I asked Terry about how he looks after around 300 staff, including just over 100 employed planners, all with different personalities, servicing around 10,000 deep client relationships, and it's all high-touch goals-based advice. We discuss how they merge firms together to create one large professional services firm and the difficult conversations that had to take place to make that happen. We explore their beliefs and philosophies as a brand like evidence-based investing and their Fiduciary Certification. We also cover how their clients are adapting technology, and he shares some of his survey feedback results to back it up. So if you're interested in having a look under the hood of Australia's largest goals-based advice firm, then this episode, number 143 of the Goals-Based Advice podcast, is the place to do it. Welcome to the show, Terry.
Hi, Fraser. How are you?
Fantastic. Thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, great to be here. I enjoyed listening to Finn a few weeks ago. And I've been following the show, so it's great to be here.
Yeah, Finn's an absolute superstar, isn't he?
I think he's a great example of a Shadforth advisor, someone who started as a young man, a paraplanner straight out of university, had great mentors. Is still a relatively young man, I'm going to guess and say 40, but he is an outstanding advisor, someone you'd have your parents' money looked after, which was my test. So yeah, lovely guy and a very, very good advisor and really leading the way for Shadforth in Tasmania.
Yeah, fantastic. And you just got yourself in big trouble with trying to guess his age?
Well, yes, that's never very smart, is it?
It's never going to end well.
No, that's right.
Terry, do you want to give us a quick introduction to yourself, who you are?
Sure. I'm the CEO of Shadforth. I've been working for Shadforth or the businesses that came together to form Shadforth for the best part of 30 years. Which means I started in the industry back in the 80s when it really grew out of the product sales, the life insurance salesmen or stockbrokers basically selling investments. I joined a firm that was called Integral Financial Planning. It became Precedent. It became Plan B, and in 2014 it became part of Shadforth. So for most of that time I've been an advisor. And I think as a CEO of a large advice business, hopefully I have some skills, but probably my biggest strength is I've sat in the chair of advisors for most of my career. I think like an advisor. I know clients and I'm passionately committed to helping clients achieve their objectives. So there's a lot of good CEOs in advice and they'll bring different skills. I think my one wood is I actually understand clients and advice, and I've tried to really capitalize on that. Since I've been in this role for about the last 3 years now.
Yeah, fantastic. It's good for any professional industry to start in an area. We talked about Finn starting in paraplanning. I look back at my very first job as a chef. I started washing dishes, and that taught me not to make extra dishes when you were cooking. And so you do learn sort of things along the way, and you pick up little things that you don't even realize you have by being actually sitting in the seats and trying and in the chairs of all the different parts of the business.
Yeah, I remember starting in the advice business and not really giving frontline advice myself, doing all of the grunt work, I guess, for the senior advisors, which meant preparing paperwork. We used to rebalance portfolios manually once a week in the boardroom using a pencil to do allocations. But sitting in those meetings with very good experienced advisors, doing most of the work, but really getting an amazing education from them about how do you engage with clients, how do you, the basic skills about listening, trying to find the reason the person's really there, but spending more time listening than talking. All of those things. It seems like a long time ago now, Fraser. It is actually a long time ago, but they're sort of foundational learnings you can't, and I talk to a lot of our younger people about, people come to Shadforth for a career. It isn't a transactional. If you don't actually believe in who we are, you're unlikely to come and spend a couple of years. Some people do, of course. But the journey is really important. A lot of our younger people stare at the top of the mountain and say, Terry, I just want to get there. I want to be advising really big clients. I want to be involved in big things straight away. And I say, yeah, that's fine. We have a career path for you, but you can't shortcut it. You've actually got to sit in meetings. You've got to understand everything. Your sort of emotional IQ of dealing with clients, you can't shortcut that. That is going to take some time. So I think the average Shadforth advisor tenure is 14 years. Something like 95% of them started with us as like Finn, as a paraplanner, a graduate straight out of university. And they come through with unbelievably strong technical skills, of course, because they've come through that system. But the time we take means they really understand client service. They really understand what market ups and downs are about, and how people's lives never work out exactly as they plan. So that's a really important part of the Shadforth story, that people come to us to have a career, and we don't want to rush them. We don't want it to take any longer than it has to, but we're not aiming to be average advisors. We're aiming at the premium end of the market, and we want really outstanding people. And people get tired of me talking about this, but I interview young people to come into the firm, and I say there's two things we want. We want professional competence. We want really smart people. We want really, really smart people. But we also want personal competence and trust. That means we want really good people. And if I was drawing a diagram of this, you can have someone who's very smart and has all the competencies, but you can't trust them. They're not part of your culture. I'd rather have someone who had the right competencies around trust and than someone with great competency straight away who you really know is going to eat away at the culture of the firm. So we're very clear. We want really smart people. We want really good people, and we're not prepared to compromise on either. And we're realistic, right? We're not talking about robots here. But by calling it out early, it actually sets the standard for the culture that we want as a firm. And I get excited every day, Fraser, by looking at the young people we have in our firm and how many of them are going to be the leaders of the industry in 10 or 15 years' time.
Yep.
I'm not sure what your first question was, but
yeah. So we were sort of talking about, and I want to dive into this a bit more. But before we get there, I just want to go through. You mentioned very briefly the history of the firm, but how it came about. But do you want to give us a bit more information about that?
Sure. So depending on who you talk to, it's either 13 or 14 firms came together in 2012, and they were all very successful entrepreneurial firms with, in their own right, who would be leading firms today. There was a shared purpose. I mean, you bring that many entrepreneurs together, you're going to have a few strong discussions about things. But the philosophy was sort of, let's not argue about. And look, I wasn't here at the time in 2008, but I was here shortly afterwards. I was in one of the firms that joined afterwards. But the story is, the entrepreneurs, the businesses who came together said, let's not argue about the color of the coffee cups. Okay, that's not important. What are the key things that we want to stand for as an advice business? And those things were going to be goals-based advice. We believe in an evidence-based investment philosophy. We believe in putting clients first every day. They're the things that we're going to agree on together. And they're quite remarkable, right? 13, 14 firms, successful in their own right. They put away all their sort of petty jealousies or got to be my way. And I think they came up with the best way, in my view. And then that firm, which came together in 2008 in the GFC, which actually made the decision-making process easier in the end, Fraser. It made some of the difficult things we just said, got to do it. Was very successful. Today it's 300 odd people, but if you just go back one step, it was sold in 2014 to IWF for just under $700 million. Probably the highest value advice business, if you ignore all the other parts of funds managers and those things in the country, I would think. Now, someone will probably correct me and tell me there's something else, but if you exclude the banks and AMP and those sorts of places, so remarkable business. Its history goes back well over 100 years to the Shadforth original stockbroking business in Tasmania. But even in its modern form, in the last 12 years, it's 300 odd people, 110 advisors, 10,000 higher than average net worth clients. The average Shadforth client has about $1 million invested with us, a net worth of $3 to $5 million. It's not James Packer, but it is successful executives and professionals. It is people who probably have done a little better than average, people who are financially literate, but people who value their own time and actually want to employ an advisor to help them to delegate some of those responsibilities. I feel very fortunate. I think we actually have, pretty much all our advisors are CFPs. We have great clients. We have lots of challenges, but it's a very strong advice proposition, and you'll be very aware of the difficulties the industry's been through. Shadforth addresses all of those problems from a very, very, very strong starting position.
Yeah, now it's interesting. I was going to dive in a little bit deeper to that bringing of those 13 firms together.
Whether it's 13, yep.
yeah. Because that it is absolutely incredibly difficult thing to do, because to build a firm to start with that is a successful firm, you do need to have quite clear beliefs around all these sorts of things. And so, I can't imagine that happening today with 13 strong personalities trying to build, like, as you mentioned, not arguing over the coffee cups, but it would have been interesting to be a fly on the wall at that time.
Yeah, I think there was enough things that they agreed on, and I think the strength of the ideas, building the firm around goals-based advice. I know there was an extent. There was some of the people who came together already had very strong views about our evidence-based investment approach. Some of the firms didn't. But on going through it and saying we're going to stand for helping people achieve their most important long-term goals and objectives, which investment philosophy do we think is going to allow us to achieve that with the most amount of certainty for the most amount of clients? That answered that question.
Yeah.
So look, it is remarkable. We are not. If you look at us, we're nationally spread. We are not 5 federated states. We are one national. I guess you'll ask about it, but we see ourselves as a professional services firm. And I'd just like to think that any client could walk into a Shadforth office in Hobart or Sydney or Perth or Melbourne or Brisbane or Adelaide and know you're going to get a level of quality and consistency in the advice that you get from any Shadforth advisor. You're not going to find someone wandering around selling you emerging market debt or not believing in goals-based advice in any of our offices. So yeah. I think I heard you in one of your other podcasts talking about how do you have so many people and get them to all follow a similar philosophy? Well, I think part of it is, I think you used an example, is it like McDonald's? It's nothing like McDonald's, except McDonald's does have a process that delivers consistency. I would compare it more to a PwC or a Freehills. We do see ourselves in wealth management as probably the only, given what's happening in the industry, is getting less competitors in some ways, Fraser, but the only firm that's actually aspiring to be a genuine professional service firm, a national firm where, like the big accounting and law firms, there's a level of quality and consistency that you can get anywhere in Australia. So, in my belief, Fraser, we're making 30 to 50-year promises to people. We're embarking on a life journey with people. And one of the things that Shadforth can do is we have a track record of keeping those promises and seeing our clients through, even as our advisors achieve their own objectives and retire and do other things. We've got clients who are now on their 3rd generation of advisor. And one of the things we are saying is we're starting on this journey. It may be 30 years or 50 years. We're going to be there the whole way through. Can't guarantee the individual advisor will, because they will retire sometime. And I see that as a key difference for Shadforth versus, and I've got loads of friends in the advice industry. Obviously, I respect them. There's a lot of great small businesses out there. They have real strengths. I'd say one of our strengths is we're actually committing to 30 to 50-year outcomes, and you've got to have a level of planning for the future that's going to allow you to actually be there for your clients.
Yep. Now, I will dive in a little bit deeper into this conversation around you've got 100 plus advisors. They're salaried advisors. They're employees of the business, so they're not. We're not talking about, as you mentioned, it's a professional services firm, not a licensee in that respect.
Correct. We ban licensees, we ban dealerships, we ban channels. They're words that sort of are really about product sales. So yes, we're our advisors are salary plus bonus. But again, I would, and the point of making these distinctions is not to cast aspersions on others. But if you take what's the typical salaried advice model, it's the banks with all of the disasters involved. So we draw a very, very clear distinction that we are a professional service model, like a legal firm or an accounting firm. Our advisors are paid salaries plus bonus. Of course, it relates to how successful they are and how many people they help. But it's very different, I think, to the salary. I think we have to be very clear that the problems of the bank salaried model are so different from the model that Shadforth is establishing for its advisors. Our KPIs for our advisors are around net promoter scores, feedback from clients, obviously compliance. Are their clients on track to achieve their goals and objectives? Have they met best interest every single time? This is a very different, and I make the distinction because when we talk about salaried advisors, I think there's a very different distinction the way Shadforth's doing it and perhaps why the banks and some of the larger financial institutions have done it in the past.
Yep, fantastic. And as we sort of touched on, you're going to have 100 plus personalities in that, and you did sort of cover it at the beginning with regards to bringing people in that have the same sort of core values in the beginning. But how do you corral those personalities?
The thing is, I think you need the. I'm always surprised at the range of personalities that make great advisors. At face value, you might go, that person's just doesn't really seem to be the sort of person who would be a great advisor. But I'm always surprised, right? I was an advisor who I gave up all my clients, I think, in 2010. It's a long time ago. $250 million odd of FUM, a couple of $1 million of revenue. I was successful by advice standards. And I have a young advisor saying, Terry, so how did you do it? You started relatively young. You were quite successful. And they say, I don't think I can ever be a great advisor, and maybe I don't have the communication skills. The truth, Fraser, is much more basic than that. I was probably pretty ordinary at first, but I had 10,000 hours of practice. I just spent all of my time talking to clients. I was passionate about their goals and objectives, and I cared. And I just did it again and again and again and again. I ended up getting better and better at it. And I carved out a niche for myself in an area of advice that sort of suits our strengths, I think. So I focused on dealing with executives and professionals in Perth, where I was living, which was a lot of the oil industry executives. What were their characteristics? They were highly paid. They were good delegators. They did that with their own staff in their oil companies they worked for and all the rest of it. Great advice made a difference to them. They earned enough money that we could actually really help them. They had complex REM schemes. And they were super busy. They were time poor. I focused on that, and that really helped me build a very successful advice practice. But it was practice, right? It was just doing it again and again and again. And the one thing I would say, I was actually absolutely committed to helping people achieve their goals and objectives. And I had a very clear focus on, if that's my focus, they'll be happy to pay me appropriately to do it for them, and the business will be fine as well. It is a relatively simple formula. I wonder sometimes why, acknowledging all the great success stories in our industry, but how the industry's kind of lost its way. And there wasn't enough focus on this. Just put the client at the heart of everything. And the economics of the business get very easy once you've done that.
Yeah. And that's what compliance is really, at the heart of compliance, right? We think of compliance as this job to do, but the reason for compliance is exactly that, making sure that you're looking after the clients.
Yeah, I mean, I describe it because we've gone through a massive uplift in what's expected. The whole industry has, and we think we've gone above and beyond. And I describe it to the advisors that we have to be like Qantas. We can't have planes falling out of the air. We have to have bulletproof compliance, because it's good for clients. It's also good for advisors. We don't want you failing audits. We want great compliance. I do think once we come to the standard, the industry has an obligation to turn compliance into something that actually serves clients better. There can be no walking back from the standards that we're looking to achieve, the putting clients first, the ethics, all of those things. But advice has got too complicated. The documents are too long. It takes too long to give it. And we have to find a way to not compromise on the quality, but to be able to deliver advice to more people in a cost-effective manner and in a simpler manner. The documents at the moment, unfortunately, are designed to protect the licensees, not really deliver great advice to clients. That's I'm generalizing here, but I think that's the next challenge. And there can be no shirking the level that we need to get to. We need to get there, but then you've got to make it great for clients or it won't be sustainable.
Yes, I'm very much for one trying to make these advice documents understandable, which is, the main point, all the information you need to make a decision. So,
yeah, agree.
Now, I want to talk about mentoring because it's obviously something that you have in the practice, in the firm. You've been able to, like you said, you've got advisors at different stages and levels of the career. And we've mentioned the idea of technical information and then having those mentoring that really helps define that skills around soft skills. How do you see mentoring? How do you promote it within the business? How is it part of the culture?
Yeah. So historically, Fraser, we've, in all the various forms of Shadforth over the last 30 years, the last 12 years as they've come together in their previous businesses, I still hear people harking back to saying we were always at our best when we were in meetings with our leading advisors and we listened and we did the work. We've had various attempts at trying to become really efficient. And sometimes we've strayed away from having our associate advisors and paraplanners in with the advisors. Every time we do it, and this is not recently, but every time we do it, it's a mistake. Okay. Shadforth has 109 advisors and we have 54 associate advisors, paraplanners. Of those 109 advisors, 95% of them started, like Finn Dorney, as a paraplanner and advisor. Now, I know Finn has all the requisite technical skills, the commitment to ethics. He believes in our investment approach. He believes in goals-based advice. He's come through that system. We've got 50 more of them. Almost 50% of our existing advisor base are looking at their successes. Now, not all of them will stay. We hope they will. But we've actually doubled down in the last 18 months on the factors that made us successful. So rather than having the mentoring happening sporadically and as we could get advisors into offices, we're moving to a diamond team structure where if you think of it as a legal, like in the legal example, you might have a partner at the top of the diamond. In our case, we're calling that a principal advisor. Either side of the principal advisor, you'll have a private client advisor. And at the bottom, we're having what we're calling a financial advisor. And that group might have 250, 270 clients. The lead advisor is someone who's incredibly successful and has been for a long period of time. They've probably got grey hair. They've probably got 20 years experience. They're very well connected in the community. They are technically very good, but it's their judgment that people really want, their experience and judgment, right? Expertise is, having the technical knowledge is one thing. Why do people pay a premium? They pay a premium for people's judgment. And we have these younger advisors who are awesome. They have all the technical knowledge. Maybe they don't have 20 years experience. Maybe they haven't been through the 87 share market crash, the bubble. They haven't had struggle with mortgages themselves and had, older kids going through problems. So our clients want that. So in our diamond team, we have the principal advisor, the two private client advisors and a financial advisor. The financial advisor goes into every meeting with all three. So there's 250 clients. The principal advisor at the top is like the rainmaker for the business, but he's also the grey-haired person who has the judgment. The private client advisors might be 40 or 35 or 45, but perhaps not as successful as the guy or lady at the top. There's three reasons we're doing this. Firstly, we want faster, more thorough career trajectories for our associate advisors. So when they move into that financial advisor role at the bottom, all they're doing is going into meetings, taking notes, preparing the documents for the paraplanners to then complete the work. But they're sitting in meetings with advisors listening to fee queries, investment performance queries, husband and wives arguing about goals. How do you handle these things? How do you listen more than talk? And we do role playing and we try and do training. The best training comes from our best advisors who don't even know they're teaching the people. They have the skills, they've acquired them over time. So we really want, those more and more of those 50 people who are now associate advisors and paraplanners in diamond teams where they're effectively doing nothing but sitting in 5 meetings a day with our best advisors. We've currently got about 20 to 25% of our advisors in that diamond team structure. The plan is to move the whole business to it over time. So that's a long-winded answer of saying, how do we get people in meetings with advisors? We want to grow faster by doing that. We want to look after our clients better, and we want to have a career pathway for our associate advisors becoming financial advisors, where it's like a fire hose, the information they're getting about how to deal with clients, how to listen, how to talk to clients, how to deal with investment markets, all of those things. So hopefully that answers your question there, Fraser.
Yeah, it does. I was going to also mention the professional year as a pathway. It's been very difficult for individual or small firms to take on people for that professional year and bring them through. But I'm guessing that the structure that you're putting in place is certainly lends itself to that.
It absolutely does. I mean, it's early days for the professional year, but we will handle that. I mean, we would have had similar things in place anyway, but yes, we're ideally placed to do that. Someone asked me the other day, and I think they were being cheeky. They said, why would someone work for Shadforth and not a boutique? I said, well, firstly, we're making 50-year promises. We intend to keep them. We're going to be the only professional services firm nationally where you can, if you're a senior executive in a industry and you're going to be moved around, you can deal with a Shadforth advisor in every state and have a similar level of quality. But this was a young guy asking the question. I said, do you want a job or do you want a career? We're actually building people. We won't rush you. You'll get every step of the way, but we're actually, our history is people come and join Shadforth and can't leave because they believe in what we're doing so much. And I think it opened his eyes. Now, again, I wouldn't be critical of small businesses. They're obviously awesome and they're great competitors of ours. But there's a certain infrastructure that a firm like Shadforth has that can really bring people through that I think is a unique example. And I'm very upfront. Part of our professional service firm strategy is the best graduates that are coming through, the top 1% who could do investment banking or law or whatever else, we want them at Shadforth. We want them to choose us, and we're going to help them have unbelievable careers in advice and wealth management if they come with us. So, could people do it elsewhere? Of course they could, but I think my daughter's 24 and just started her career in the law. The law firms are very good at setting you up so that, yes, they get their pound of flesh, but they really create a career path for you. And that's what people want. They want to see, if I do this, I can get to here, I can get to here. So that is the Shadforth model of bringing people on. And I would, remembering those 50-year commitments we're making, we have 109 advisors. We have their succession plan already employed, sitting in meetings with them. We'll always have the grey-haired guys around and girls because they're very important. That judgment is super important. That's why we're a premium advice firm. But we also know they won't work forever. We need to bring people through. So I think that is there's a bunch of reasons why I'll be accused of being a bit biased, Fraser, just in case you're wondering. But there's a bunch of reasons why I'd say Shadforth's pretty unique in the Australian marketplace. People say, who are your competitors? Everyone's a competitor. But with the larger institutions sort of getting out of advice, there's not too many single firms that have 110 advisors, 10,000 clients with average investments with them of $1 million each. Average client tenure of more than 10 years, strong culture, profitable. You might name someone, but I can't name too many that fit into that category.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting space, not having the competition in the size of the firm. Obviously, from an advisor to advisor level, that sort of is in there. But I might just quickly jump to the ownership structure, as in you're obviously owned by a large corporation.
Yep.
How does, and I think the listeners would be wanting me to ask a question around that. How does that work for you? How much say do they have? Because they're obviously running different styles of licenses.
Yeah, so IWF purchased Shadforth in 2014, and I was running Plan B Wealth Management at that time. We merged Plan B with Shadforth. I worked running the WA business for a while and then took over the CEO role. Look, Renato Motta is the CEO of IWF, and he sees that they've got different approaches to different businesses. Shadforth is clearly their high net worth premium advice business. They've committed to dealing with everyone in the marketplace. Shadforth has a particular level where we really do our best working upwards. But essentially, my message to Renato and the team is we're going to do three things incredibly well. We're going to meet best interest every day. We're going to manage conflict of interest in favour of clients. And we're going to have a higher level of professional competencies, a commitment to sort of ethics, education, and a proven, repeatable investment process that's going to set us apart from others. And therefore, your ownership in that structure where we manage conflicts in favour of clients is actually a benefit. It's not a negative. And, you know, my challenge to the industry is I'm good at it. I can point to the problems of vertical integration in the past. Vertical integration can also provide client benefits, right? So very importantly, Shadforth just recently put itself forward to be certified as a fiduciary firm. An international, effectively an audit was done by a firm called CEFEX, the Centre for Fiduciary Excellence. And they come in and they look at all your client files, your investment committee minutes, the way you benchmark yourself, your processes. They look at your cybersecurity, all of the things that you would want to do. And essentially, we're very proud of the fact that we got through that and our firm was certified as a fiduciary. Now, we have to go back every year and get recertified. But what are the three primary duties of a fiduciary? Always put your clients first, avoid or manage conflicts in favour of your clients, and have a set of professional competencies that mean, short of capitalism failing as an idea, your clients are going to achieve their objectives. So we're very proud of that. And, you know, we see IWF's ownership of us as being a net positive. And I know that's difficult for people in the industry, but they're very supportive of us. I think they're very proud of Shadforth. We have a lot of very relatively wealthy clients, very well-known clients. We serve them incredibly well, and I think IWF is very supportive of what we're doing.
Yep. Now, I do want to find out a little bit more of the fiduciary accreditation. It's an accreditation, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a certification. Yep.
Certification. And how do you use that within the business and with your clients?
Well, I even fall into the trap now, Fraser, of calling it the advice industry. I think we all aspire for it to be seen and to be a genuine advice profession. And I think if you're going to be an advisor, your relationship with a client is fiduciary in nature, right? You have a duty of loyalty and care, and those three standout things. You know we have best interest duties in the Corps Act anyway. We're just putting it front and centre. Okay, so when I look at the great advice we give, I want to celebrate the money that's available to invest that we use to pay down debt. That's every bit as important to me as the money we might build an investment portfolio for. So these are not, in some ways, that best interest duty is there. It's really there. We're just bringing it front of centre, and we're being clear with ourselves, with our owners, with the regulator, with our next new client, that we're actually here for you. And everything, we're going to charge you a premium price because we provide premium advice. But we're going to provide you with great advice. We're going to manage conflicts of interest in your favour. And we're going to have a higher set of professional competencies and standards that mean, again, short of a nuclear war or capitalism failing, your investments are pretty much going to work. So I think it's very important for firms to call them, to set those standards. For a firm like Shadforth with a lot of high net worth clients, an owner, an institutional owner, I think we have to call out really clearly what we stand for. And it's not a marketing, it is a marketing thing, but it's not a marketing thing. It's who we are. It's how we speak to clients. And I think it, again, tells our existing clients what we stand for and perhaps the next person that we talk to. So there are other firms in Australia who've got that certification. They're all excellent firms. I know, if I don't know the people, I know the firms. Very strong, and pretty much all of them, I think, have a very strong goals-based advice process. A lot of them are committed to evidence-based investing, as we are. So I think that fiduciary certification really just supports all of the things we've always done. But I think it also, you draw a line in the sand and you say, here's what we stand for. Here's what you can expect from us. Good for our people. Our people bounce out of bed every day. They never lose a second of sleep worried about, have I been asked to do something I'm not comfortable with? Because our mantra is, and people get sick of me saying it, just do what's right by the client. Treat every client as if they were your mother or your family member or your disabled brother. Let's just do the right thing every time. And the magic of this is if you do that, people will pay you handsomely to look after them. You know, if you think of all your consumer experiences out there, how often are you genuinely, and I mean genuinely, you go through something and go, wow, that was awesome. That was a great experience. You know, maybe Apple hit it at some point with some device, or, you know, we for some of our older clients, we've now started sending Ubers to pick them up and drop them home because it's a bit difficult for them to get in. We don't want them to have any problems. Little things like that, they actually really, really value. We pay for their parking in the city because we've got typically CBD offices. Certainly in Perth we do. So I think, you know, we're aiming to have that client experience where people walk out and say, well, I'm so glad I'm being looked after by these guys because, you know, advice is great. The obvious commitment to us, our goals and objectives and ethics is so clear. And it's not that you couldn't get it somewhere else, but how do clients know what's good? How do they find what's good? So I think we have to be very clear with our principles, what we're going to stand up for. And you know, I think a firm like the other 6 firms who are very good firms who have become fiduciaries, none of them are very big in the scheme of the Australian advice landscape. If Shadforth, a big successful firm with 10,000 large clients, 100 of the best advisors in the country, if we stand for fiduciary advice, I actually think it can be one of the inflection points that helps the industry move from an industry into a true profession. So I don't want to overstate it, but we do have big ambitions for our fiduciary status.
Yeah, fantastic. Now, I want to ask you what goals-based advice means to you.
Well, that's a big question, Fraser.
Yes. Yes, I do ask a few different people, and obviously, you know, different things come out. But I'm pretty passionate about a lot of this sort of stuff. I've got plenty of opinions, but tell me, what's your opinion of it? How does it differ?
Well, I mean, the one thing that we decided early on in my career is we didn't want to become investment salespeople, and the idea of linking capital markets and all the ups and downs, and then people's unique cash flows, assets, liabilities, cash flows, to goals and objectives just made sense to us. The way, you know, today littering doesn't make any sense. Getting into the car and not putting on a seatbelt. Investing today without connecting it to goals, to me, just is illogical. Now, I've heard you talk about, you know, goals, multiple goals that everyone has. And I saw you were saying somewhere between 5 and 10. My own experience as an advisor and looking at our clients is they all have multiple goals. There's often a centralized, there's often a major goal at the heart of everything. And for my own clients, and I'd say a lot of our clients, it was the long-term achievement of financial independence was what they were actually after. They did not want to stop work, but they wanted to have a plan together where they were on track to be able to make decisions about their lives. If their boss was an idiot, if their health failed, that they had enough money, they could walk away and live their best lives. So the guiding principle tended to be, we are about helping people achieve financial independence. That's the big idea at the end of the day. And often, because our clients probably had a little more money than average, they're also really interested in legacy. You know, when I'm gone, I not only want to live my best retirement, but I'm going to leave the house and potentially $1 million or whatever, 50% of my retirement assets to the next generation. And a lot of people think once people have a certain amount of money, does goals-based advice really matter? Hello, the answer is yes. The more money you have, the more aspirational people get for what they want to do. And it's not just, you know, sitting at the front of the plane and having a lavish lifestyle. My own experience with our clients is they aspire for a lot more for their families and the people who will follow them. So goals-based advice for me was always based around those long-term issues, but then those things, if they may be the long-term target, but along the way, everyone, you know, my clients wanted to send their kids to private schools, or they wanted to pay off debt, or they wanted to have a holiday every year, or they wanted to help their kids get started in a house. And I would say all of those things are super important because they actually give people the confidence to make the decision, to make the efforts that they require to achieve their long-term goals. And we're very clear at Shadforth, we don't think it's about accumulating the most amount of money. Okay, we have plenty of clients with lots of money. And one example I'll give you, Fraser, is when you do a risk profile with someone, and that tells them they should have X amount of money in growth assets. I mean, we do them for various reasons, but we actually think it's pretty dumb. If I asked you, we were standing around a campfire, and I said, Fraser, stick your hand in the fire and let's just see how long you can leave it there. You might last a couple of seconds because you're a tough guy, right? I get that. That doesn't mean you want to, right? So clients come to us and it might be, Terry, I want to be independent by 55. I want to leave the house and $1 million to my children. We want to take an overseas holiday every year. We're going to privately educate the kids. I'm not that experienced with capital markets, so volatility, I'd like to keep that as low as possible. When we put all those things into our modelling tools and come up with the right way to achieve their objectives, often we're telling them to take less risk, target lower returns, because they told us they wanted these things and they didn't enjoy risk. They didn't enjoy variability of returns. So the same way I wouldn't tell you to put your hand into the fire and just leave it there for as long as you can, we really focus on the goals. And then that takes the pressure off financial markets having to give us the kind of great returns they have for the last 10 years. Will they do that in the next 10 years? Who knows? But we try and set the goals for the client based on the things that are important to them, not some arbitrary measure of you must have $10 million by the time you die or earn the best return every year. Obviously, we want to do that. And we're very careful to say that whilst investment management is not the focus of what we do, it's so important. You can't take your eyes off it either. So I'm not one of these people who say it doesn't matter. It does matter, and you have to be really good at it. You also have to understand, where you can do more damage than good. So we focus on the goals. Every meeting starts with the goals. Every meeting takes the client back to that, reminds them why they came to us. And of course, the investments and how that goes is very, very important. But it's actually in service of the goals. It's not the other way around.
Yep. Yeah, I was thinking of the analogy when you mentioned the hand in the fire of driving a car, for example. It's not about driving to the destination as fast as possible and speeding and putting your life in risk. Right. It's about knowing what time you've got to get there, leaving early enough, getting there on time at a safe pace to all that. So fantastic. Now, you did mention tools and technology, and we spoke a lot with Fit about modelling, those sorts of things. I think we've had a chat before about the idea of stochastic modelling and how modelling has come a long way from the old spreadsheet days. And a big part of goals-based advice is that modelling outcomes and looking at what happens if you put your money into this school fees or that school fees, what happens to all the rest of it. How do you tackle that? And obviously you're a bit of a fan of technology, as I am.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't. My children would laugh at you saying that, Fraser. But yes, I am in a work context. So how do we do that? So in Shadforth, the vast majority of our modelling is still done on a deterministic basis. Okay, straight line returns, and we know that that's going to be wrong for 50% of people. We do have some tools where we use stochastic modelling and we get percentage chances of outcomes. And I actually think that is the future. The future of our tech. We have some really exciting stuff that's coming. That takes our deterministic goals-based advice tools to a whole nother level, like off the charts, much better. Right now, what's available and what we'll be releasing soon because it focuses on individual goals, the stochastic modelling, our guys get sort of freaked out when you apply it. I'm saying you put everything in the model and then you do the stochastic modelling at the end to get your percentage chance of achieving everything. You don't have, you can use for those on the call who are watching this who don't know, it's really logical. If you get a return over 10 years of 8% and one portfolio does it with lots of ups and downs, some of the people in that experience will get a much worse result. They'll still get 8%, but they'll have their money will run out earlier. I'm oversimplifying it, Fraser, but
yep.
You know what I'm talking about. So I think the future is individual goals. But for the overall plan and strategy, you need a stochastic model, and you need to tie your clients to the measurement of progress against that percentage chance. So whether it's you need to be achieving the objectives in greater than 75% of past lifestyles, if you like. I think it's really important. Some people have said to me, Terry, it's too complicated. Clients are never going to get it. My own experience is, and I call it financial planning for adults. This is grown-up stuff. You can do all the right things, but if you happen to retire the day before the GFC hits, that first hit you take is very hard to recover from, and often if you're spending your money, you don't recover. And I think clients deserve to know this. So I'm a very big believer in saying we do everything right, and then we realize that black swan events can happen, and what might it mean if they happen for you. And that actually helps people have grown-up decisions about how much risk they take. And they also understand it's not just capital markets that are giving them, that are the determinants of their returns. It's how many assets do you have today? How much are you saving? What's your life expectancy? How much do you want to leave at the end? And you've got lots of levers to help them with there. So I'm a big advocate of it. What I have seen is clients value that conversation more than pretty much everything else. They really value coming in. One of my old clients used to say, Terry, can I come in and spin the wheel? Which was his version of, let's run the model for the stochastic modeling and see where we're at. I want to buy this house down south, or I bought a bigger boat. Can I still achieve all of my objectives? What's my score? So I'm sure I think I know that you're a believer in this stuff as well, Fraser. We're not where we need to be. I think we're the next stage of the tools we're launching in the next 12 months are very exciting, like really exciting for our clients, and going to give us the ability to model individual goals really well, but also do the stochastic modeling at the end.
Yeah, it's very interesting, and no doubt the tools will come on over the next few, 3, 4, 5 years as well. It'll continue to happen. The computation power is getting more and more and becoming easier and easier for advisors to be able to do these sorts of things. I'm also a fan of the idea of that goals are a client's measure of success, and to be able to provide them some level of certainty around the likelihood of that happening or not happening certainly helps them with both not just getting their goals, but helping them set their goals in the first place, because often I find that people struggle with that conversation to start with until I've done it a few times, and then they get it and they can bring those on. So giving them those measures of success using some fairly complicated and complex computation modeling. At the end of the day, clients don't tend to mind how you come up with the number. They want to know the outcome. What does that mean for them?
Correct. I mean, I there was times when it's a while, so I'm rusty, but where I would say, Fraser, we're going to run your future financial life as if you lived it every year, going back as far as we've got data, which is through big bull markets, terrible markets. We're going to put all your cash flows in, and then we're going to give you a percentage chance of achieving your objectives. And you don't want to be at 100. If you're at 100%, you're probably sacrificing too much lifestyle today. You can take less risk, or you can spend less. But it's a very engaging conversation for a client. And my own experience is people value it, will pay for it, see it as they don't have to understand Monte Carlo simulations and get into the maths of it. They get I understand that the world is a complicated place and there's going to be uncertainty, including my life expectancy, right? It's 84 if it's a straight line, but some people will live to 100 and some will be gone by 70, whatever. So I think it's where we need to go. I'm obviously passionate about it. You also asked about just technology generally. One point I'd make is we've just gone past our 100th day of having every Shadforth advisor and support staff and paraplanner and associate advisor working from home, 100 days. In that time, we've conducted around 5,000 client progress meetings, all on Zoom, pretty much all on Zoom, the odd one face-to-face. The offices obviously haven't been open. The thing we couldn't get past before the pandemic hit, Fraser, was we thought our clients are older. Will they be able to? Will they actually want to do it? What's so clear to me is we underestimated them. Not only has it worked really well, but they've actually really enjoyed it. We've got really good at sharing screens, showing them their plans, their models or their portfolios. And it won't replace our face-to-face work long-term. But what it will do, if I read what the clients tell me, they're typically very happy. The one bit of feedback is they say, outside the programmed progress meetings, I'd like more contact. Okay, that's the one thing they all say. But do they really want to drive into the city 3 or 4 times a year and park the car and do all those things? Maybe they don't. But I think they will engage with us on Zoom going forward, and there'll be a lot more opportunity for advisors to connect more often with our clients. So I'm super excited. I'm not sure we would have learned it eventually, but we learned it really fast through the pandemic. The other thing is they've adopted DocuSign. We've got 1 million documents flowing back and forth, and we would have said, no, that client's 64. They're not going to be able to do that. They can, and it's really changed the way we work. We've also, we're modernizing the way we manage investments for clients. A lot of, Shadforth is an unbelievably conscientious and strong business, but we tend to do things today a bit like we did in the 1950s. A lot of paper things and 4 people checking things, and a lot of things that were put in place knowing the errors might happen. So there's a lot of the modernization that's going on in the firm is not just bringing up the advice tools, but also the way we manage investments. Their portfolios are often complex. Rebalancing portfolios back to target allocations is actually relatively easy using an algorithm and technology. Now, it won't suit everyone, but rather than, dealing with clients suffering cash drag, there being sometimes a 6-month gap between when cash comes in and when it gets invested, we're really having a massive push to overcome all of those things. And again, I think this is part of modernizing the advice offering. And it's been getting 300 people to come with you on this stuff, Fraser. The logic has to be compelling, and it is. But our primary thing is we're not going to tell anyone that you must do it this way. We're going to say you must do the best thing by the client. And when we do that, it's a bit of, what's his name? Kevin Costner in Field of Dreams. Build it and they will come. Our advisors care passionately about doing the right thing by the client. So as we think about bringing these things in, I always put myself back in my advisor days and say, what would I want? Because I don't want to build things for them they're not going to use. Okay, it's kind of pointless. It's a lot of effort and money and time. So I always put myself back. I test it with our advisor forum. And, when we make these changes, we tend to get very, very big take up because it serves the clients as well as the advisors.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in the idea that we taught the clients how to behave in the first place, and if we've taught them how to sign on the dotted line, that's a behavior thing that we've taught them to do. And if we make a change, or we do DocuSign, or you do multi-factor authentication, or whatever is going to be next, they'll just pick up on it. I mean, to think that a person who is retired doesn't know how to transfer some money from one bank account to the other online and use multi-factor authentication is insane. They don't sign for that, but we taught them they must sign our documentation.
Yep. And we've had this other unique thing too, where because we've been doing the progress meetings online and the advisors have been at home, they're at home and halfway through the progress meeting, one of the kids wanders past, the dog barks. And rather than it being uncomfortable, it's personalized the advisors' lives for the clients. And the clients have felt like, Fraser's got whatever, a kid or wife, or, he's a normal person. He's sitting in his office or in his bedroom or wherever our advisors are sitting.
Yeah.
We've had this weird thing where not being face-to-face but bringing the clients into our homes has actually made us more personable, which is, again, we didn't really realize this was going to happen, but the feedback from clients has been incredibly strong. And they've gone and laughed when the dog barks and and of course the same thing's happening in the client's home. Now, I'm not saying Shadforth will ever go to we're a Zoom business. We don't meet people face to face. We thrive on face-to-face contact, but we want more proactive contact with clients, and there's no reason we can't do it through technologies like Zoom.
Yeah, exactly. And as you mentioned, it's bringing it from one home to another home. It's exactly. That's the connection. So you're making a new part of it. You're expanding the existing relationship to a new level.
Exactly. And I think, why do the great advisors in the past have a picture of their wife and children in their offices when they're talking to clients? And this is my supposition, but because they care about their wife and kids, but it personalizes you, it humanizes you. You're not just a guy with technical knowledge, whatever. You're a person with all the struggles of kids and understands what's going on. So I think that it's another version of that. When we've done our Zoom meetings from home, clients have actually really appreciated it. We've just done our annual client experience survey, Fraser. It's something we think is super important. We sent it to about 8,000 of our largest clients, and we will close it on Saturday, and we're on track to have 4,000 of them complete the survey. It's about 8 minutes. Now that's unbelievable, right? You don't get 40 to 50% of your clients completing a survey. It takes 8 to 10 minutes. Our net promoter score for our advisors, which is always super strong. And the net promoter score is, would you refer to your advisor? If I go through the last 3 years, it was 60 in 2018, 63 in 2019, and it's currently sitting at 73 for the 2,500 people we've had so far complete it. Part of that is because we've had so much contact with clients. We've been in their homes. We've personalised what we do even more. And even Shadforth's net promoter score, would you refer to Shadforth, which is a bit more of an open question. That was 43 2 years ago, 45 last year. That's now 51. So our own standing with clients has gone up again. So I think the crisis is terrible, right? There's going to be a massive amount of economic damage and everything else. But it's helped us to modernise, to see what our modern advice proposition is going to look like, and to not be held back by thinking we've got a lot of retirees and they're going to struggle with this. They actually won't. And your point about they can transfer money and deal with two-factor authentication, of course they can. Yeah. My dear old dad is an 80-year-old client of ours. Fantastic guy. He's been Zooming me I've had 20, he's back in Perth. I've spoken to him more in the last 3 months than I would normally. He's dealing with his advisor over Zoom. He's absolutely fine. But it's amazing how our own biases said they won't do it. We can't do it.
Yep. Couldn't agree more. Now, so obviously things are going very well for the firm currently. What are you working on now for sort of the short-term future?
Yeah, so we're in the middle of a major transformation, Fraser, from all of our old legacy client portfolios. We've been on that journey for about 3 or 4 years now. We're getting pretty much there. And we defined it in 3 things. We can't ignore the fact the Royal Commission happened. Okay, so we've set ourselves 4 key themes. Firstly, we want to restore trust. And how are we going to restore trust in the industry and for Shadforth? There's 3 things. Firstly, we're going to move every client onto a fixed-term client service agreement. And we're about 50% of the way through that now. Now, of all the changes we've had to make, and we're moving ahead of others, but we think it's the way of the future. If I was opening my advice business, my personal advice business tomorrow with you, if it was Terry and Fraser Financial Planning, there is no way we would do anything other than set clients up on annual service agreements. So we're 50% of the way through that. It's gone. The clients have found it very easy. We haven't had any pushback on that. So that's the interesting thing where we're all, you're asking the question every year. It's actually a good thing. The second thing is we've increased our compliance standards dramatically. What I talked about, being the Qantas, we don't have planes that fall out of the air. I won't say our advisors love it. They're kind of dealing with it. And we have to make it more client-centric. But the standards we're applying now are so much higher than we've ever applied historically. The third thing to restore trust is we needed that fiduciary certification. We needed a big statement. We needed someone outside us to say, these people put clients first every time. They manage conflicts in favour of clients, and they have a set of professional competencies that mean you should have confidence in the outcomes. So those 3 things help us restore trust. Second thing we need to do is modernise. As I said, we're sort of I think we're very modern, but there's a lot of things we do, which is paperwork going back and forth. So we've launched a free MDA for clients, which rebalances portfolios. We have a new set of advice tools coming that are going to uplift everything. We also need to create capacity in the business. So that part of that is, we have a national approach to the way we write advice now. So every day in my leadership team, when we sit down, it used to be handled at the state level, and people would manage the workloads. The number one thing on my agenda every day now is, where is our statement of advice whip? How long is it taking us to get advice to our clients? They're paying premium fees. We're an advice business. We have to be able to produce advice. So just focusing on our ability to deliver advice really quickly to clients, and having the whole firm saying, we deliver advice within 10 days every time. Okay. And now we don't always, but that's our service standard that we're holding ourselves very accountable for. And the third thing is, a lot of our clients, we have other things we do, and they're really part of history. One of the services our clients love that we don't make a big deal about is we handle all their lending. But in a fiduciary business, I think the lending part of that best sits with IWF. So we've simplified our firm to move our lending, our general insurance, and an old corporate super business that we have back to IWF, where I think it sits best. So that's the sort of simplified part of it. What are we actually trying to do? We actually want to be the Free Hills and the PwC of, if they're law and accounting, we want to have that preeminent position in advice. And when I want the best graduates coming out of university, when they're making their choices and everyone wants them, I want them thinking of Shadforth for where they want to work if they want a career in advice. And I want, not because there's not great small practices, but we are uniquely well placed to give people careers and help them through and say, come here, work really hard. Because I also annoy people by saying, if you want a quiet life, if you don't want your heart rate to get above 50, we're the wrong place for you. We're aspirational for our clients and ourselves. If you want to have a great career, it is hard work. And we don't apologize for that. I'm a big person for balance, but I don't, if you really just want to get around in the cardigan or if you're an advisor who wants to manage his golf game, you're not, that is not what our approach is. So really aspirational to grow. Our clients are older. We need to add more people who are 45 to 55. Those people who, our business wasn't built with millionaires. It was built with busy executives with $200,000 and complex financial position who needed lots of help. Today, they've got 1, 2, 3, 4 million that we manage for them. We're really focusing on being super, super competitive in terms of what we can offer, but still premium price. I mean, you cannot deal with Phil Gillard or Finn, and I could name a whole bunch of others, unbelievably strong advisors, and pay nothing for it. They're great quality people. And those advisors literally have people banging down the door to deal with them. So we charge properly for it. I think it's very, very good value. And you know what you're getting. We're just going to put your interests first every day. We're going to spend our time understanding your goals and objectives. And then we're going to build a portfolio, because you have to interact with markets. You need returns. We're going to build a portfolio short of capitalism failing that's going to help you achieve your goals and objectives every time.
Yeah. Now, it struck me as you were saying that that a lot of your clients would be, as you said, busy executives, and the structure of your firm would be very familiar to the structure of their firms that they're coming from. So when they're looking at choosing an advisor, a planner, they could easily relate to the structure of your firm.
I think they can. I mean, the reason we have we've got regional offices as well, but 95% of our staff sit in 5 capital city offices. The offices, I think they look really professional. When people come in, there's a level, okay, this is serious. These guys are serious about their future and what they do. We don't want it to become too officious. We don't want people to come in and feel like they have to wear a suit every day. But we're also managing people's money and helping them we're managing a lot of them, their total balance sheet. I think we owe them our seriousness. So the offices look serious. I want them to be welcoming. We're not going to have I visited a firm in the States recently, Fraser, that was very, very professional. You walk in, it was sort of concrete floors and glass to ceiling offices, but they had an office dog that just sat there. They had a wall of like plants. It was very warm and very well. It was California, so maybe you can get away with that. Whereas if you walk into a Shadforth office at the moment, I think they all look good. I would like them to be a bit warmer, a bit less corporate, because we're dealing with, whilst we have institutional clients and corporate clients, we're dealing with people, right? Yeah. Families. And we want to be really professional, but I also want people to feel super welcome. I want the receptionist to stand up and smile and know you're coming in and say, Fraser, how are you? Great to see you again. You're still having your coffee. Is it 1 sugar or 2? I'll get Terry for you. I want that experience every time. And Shadforth at its best does that. We're really thinking at the moment, how do we stay super professional in the way we look and feel and act? And how do we be warm as well? And you feel like you could introduce someone to us easily.
Yep, fantastic. I'm looking forward to the introduction of the office dogs. Now that everyone's working from home, they've got that, so they'll bring them in.
Yeah, a lot of people working from home have the dog asleep on the couch behind them, which is amazingly relaxing. My CFO, we sit in our management meeting every day with his little dog behind him, and it's remarkably. I don't know what it is, but there's something. And I'm not saying we're going to have anyone listening to this. We're not saying we will have a dog in every office, but I think it's a bit like looking into the clients seeing your home in the Zoom meeting. It kind of makes people real, and I think we are aiming for a very professional standard. We don't want to lose that. But I also think I want people to look forward to coming in and to have a warm experience as well.
Yep, fantastic. Now, tell me, Terry, what tips would you give to a consumer thinking about getting advice? It's obviously fairly difficult for consumers, or when people start looking at financial advice, there are so many different options and the experience can be so different from one to the other. So if you were chatting to somebody at a barbecue, what would you say to them?
Well, the first thing is I don't think consumers, they don't know what good looks like. Okay, if you look at the way most business is acquired at the moment, it's still mostly by referrals. And we've just recently done some shadow shopping and some competitor testing just to see where we fit and what clients think. And we recruited a whole bunch of people who had been referred to others and had been referred to us. And what we found is whatever the quality of the firm you were referred to, if you trusted the person, it almost didn't matter how good or bad the firm was. People trusted them. Now that's great because it shows people trust people. It's actually puts the consumer in a terrible position, right? Because your friend might be dealing with XYZ advisor who's okay, but not great. The feedback came, they don't actually know. So we need to get better at telling them what good advice looks like. Now I'm going to double down on saying, if you're looking for an advisor, find someone who understands what a fiduciary is, right? Find someone who believes in goals-based advice. And I obviously would say this, Fraser, because it's what we stand for. Find someone who understands evidence-based investing, but also understands all the other reasons. And if you really wanted to, has access to it, but can explain the pitfalls to you. Find someone who's going to be able to to keep the promises that they're making to you. So, we know we're making long-term promises. So what happens, Mr. Advisor? You're 55. How long are you going to be here? I'm only 40. I've got a long way to go. What is the story beyond that? And I would say there isn't a trade-off between your goals and objectives, having a high-quality advisor and having a firm that can be sustainable. In other words, it makes money. Okay, they actually go together. So our proposition is obviously put the client at the heart of everything you do. Charge properly for the advice, and then be fanatical about putting their interests first and focusing on their goals. If I was giving myself a bit of advice from years ago as an advisor, I would say, Terry, you don't need to deal with everyone. Physically, an advisor can only deal with, depending on who you talk to, 50 to 100 odd clients properly, right? And particularly at our level. You don't need everyone. If people don't believe in the goals-based approach, if they don't believe in evidence-based investing, if they doubt everything you say, they're probably not a great client. And I think advisors spend a lot of time trying to work with difficult people. And that's, I don't want to play down. We've all got commercial imperatives, but there's enough people out there who will, if you're going to put them first every time, if you have a strong goals-based approach, an investment philosophy that allows them and you to sleep well at night, no matter what happens, pandemics and black swan events, it's explainable. But I probably took too many clients, Fraser, in the early days because I just wanted them as clients, but they were never a great fit. So my sort of advice back to myself would be more passionate about bringing to the forefront the fact that you're just going to put clients first, charge properly, and if people don't want to come, move on. Okay, because the ones you spend, they not only take a lot of time, which is not in itself a problem, it's that they suck all the energy out of the efforts you should be putting into helping the clients who are happy to be with you.
Yep.
So, we're a growing business. We take on hundreds of clients every year, but they tend to be clients that work under our system. Higher paid people where good advice makes a difference, who are happy to delegate, who are financially literate. They're not experts, but some of them are. But they're happy to hand that over and pay for it properly. And, we found that's a great formula for them, and it's a great sustainable formula for us as well.
Yeah, fantastic. I was going to ask you about what tips would you give yourself, but you sort of answered that. Tell me, what do you think your main roadblocks are, the pains for you in the future? What are the things that are holding you back or slowing you down?
So look, the program of change is happening. I'm a great believer that if we build change into our firm that helps clients, our advisors will follow because they just passionately care about doing the right thing. So there's an impatience in me to drag everyone forward the way we have with Zoom meetings and say, this is the way of the future. And I've got a view that, most strategies fail not because they fail because you can't get people to act on them. Okay, the ideas might be real. So my disposition is to say, if we believe this is right, someone prove me wrong. But if this is right, then let's all go and do it properly. So when we move from very active investment approach 20 odd years ago to an evidence-based approach, I spent 12 months doing a 10K run around the Perth suburbs where I lived, wrestling with the decision, because it was $1 billion we were going to move. It was a big, big deal from a very active approach to something that we're still operating with now, which I'm very comfortable with. But that I couldn't sleep. I ran around. I think this is every one of my clients' philosophy, right? We wrestled with it. We tore it to pieces. We looked at the sort of endowment propositions in the US. We looked at index and we looked at very active. We looked at directs. We came up with this thing, but not until I'd wrestled with it, until I'd really come to my own view that this is the right thing to do. And then when we did it, we didn't do it for one client. We didn't do it if you feel like it. The whole firm decided this is the right thing. We had conversations with every client, and within 12 months, we'd adopted that as our process. So, my goal for the business is for the really big things that we need to change, to have a similar approach. Do the work beforehand, wrestle with all the ideas, and then if it's really better for the clients, if it's really going to make you a better, more sustainable business, then let's do it for everyone, because that's where I think Shadforth can make a massive difference.
Yep, fantastic. So tell me, if someone wants to continue the conversation with yourself or with the team, what's the best way to get hold of you?
Yeah, well, obviously the website, we actually just a plug for the website. We've got the website at the moment will be replaced in September with a new one. So you can get on our website, of course, contact us. You could email me at terry.dillon@sfg.com.au. I'm always keen to talk to people in the industry. I bang on about Shadforth, but I know a lot of people in the industry. I'm always fascinated by what's going on. So please reach out if you're interested in talking to me, or if you want to talk to Shadforth, we'd love to chat to any of the people in the industry.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you so much, Terry, for coming on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure. I love talking goals-based advice, as you know. So any opportunity is fantastic. I appreciate you coming on the show and sharing what is probably one of a fairly unique, as you said, professional services firm offering financial planning and financial advice. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Fraser. Great to be here.
Fraser Jack here. I want to thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Goals-Based Advice Podcast. If you're in Australia and after CPD or continued professional development points for this episode, then you can by going to adviceintelligence.com/resources and following the prompts. That's also where you can find the full video of each episode, as well as the detailed show notes and the links to the topics discussed. So if you're enjoying this show, subscribe and please help me spread the word by sharing it with your friends and colleagues. And I would truly appreciate a review on iTunes, or find me on LinkedIn and share your feedback. Catch you next time.